All right, guys, so you should hopefully have gathered some different supplies. Ooh, sorry, I'm going all fuzzy here. Let me get that there. So you should have some supplies that you have gathered up. And like I said, you definitely want a piece of some sort of like cardboard or really heavy duty paper to kind of be the structure and the main part. If you're using just printer paper or like a more thin, flexible kind, your door is probably going to get really saggy and it's going to kind of fall apart, or it's not going to be as sturdy. So if you have, like, this is just an old box from some folders, a folder would work well, like that kind of cardboard in a folder if it's an old one that you don't need anymore and you're allowed to cut up. A cereal box, a regular box, like an Amazon one from a shipment, something like that works really well for this. So first thing you're going to do is on your cardboard or kind of heavy duty paper, whatever you're using, you want to go in and draw out the size and shape of your door. One thing I would think about with how big you're making this door is how much and how big of other supplies you have to add to it. Because if you make this huge door, but then only have a few other little things to add, it's going to be more difficult. Plus, you may want some extra scrap cardboard to help make some details later. So first thing that I'm going to do, and I'm going to do my door on a part that doesn't have a fold to it like this box does. So I'm going to go in and I am going to make my door with kind of a surround to it. So I'm going to have kind of this wavy section because I want mine to look like there's rocks around my door. And then I'm going to make this big arched door right in the middle of mine. So this is going to kind of be my door. Remember, these are tiny doors. So we don't want them to be, gigantic, because we're looking at that tiny door art movement. I'm not going to worry about drawing any details or anything like that on it because I'm going to make all of those out of some of my other supplies. Once I have my shape done, I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. And cardboard can be a little tough to cut through sometimes, but just do your best. Take your time. If you need to cut it into smaller sections or come from different angles, you can always do that. The next thing we're going to do is you guys are going to decide if your door is going to be stationary or if it's going to swing. Now, one thing I will say, if you want your door to actually be able to open, you need to have this surround or this door frame. If you have just the door, which is fine, if you have just the door, we're not going to be able to actually hinge it and make it open and close because it has to attach to something to swing open and close from. Now, if you want to make it open, what you're going to do is you're going to cut up this line around the top, or if yours is flat on the top, you cut up and over. So you want to have it to where just the one side is a straight line. I will say if you have a round door, it's going to be really hard to do this with. But if you do want it to open, you're going to follow this next step I do. If you don't want it to open, just leave it flat just like this and just skip this step. So if you want it to open, you would cut up. You cut around the top, whether your top is flat, whether it's curved, until you get to the other side, and then you want to stop. If you keep cutting and cut the whole thing out, then you're just going to have two separate pieces. Then once it's there, we would fold this back in as flat or straight of a line as we can. So now it's kind of got that hinge to it. And my fold doesn't go right on that line I drew, but that's okay. It's close enough, and I'm going to add some details that'd cover it up. So if you want it opening and closing, you can kind of do it that way. And remember, your frame or kind of the wall that yours is in can be just a flat wall. It doesn't have to be all wavy and curved out like that. But if you want it to open and close, you need to make sure you have a frame around it. So now that I have that done, this is when I'm going to start adding my other details to it. So this is where I can go in. If I have like popsicle sticks, I could go through and I could make this look like a wood door by kind of laying these out and gluing them down onto my piece there. If I have, things like pipe cleaners, I could add on details and kind of glue them or tape them down there. I got some like beans, just some dried beans, and I'm going to glue them around because some of my edges here kind of start making it look like some stone and give it some really cool texture kind of all along this edge here. Now, if you have things like beans, or texture like that you like the texture of, but you don't necessarily want it to be that color, that may be something you want to think about, because if you don't have paint to use, that's going to be something really difficult to cover up. The other thing you can always use as well is just grabbing more of your cardboard, where I could take some scraps of my cardboard and I could start cutting out like some strips, because if I glue these on top, they're going to stick up more. So if I wanted there to be like some big panels or details on there, I could take that on and start gluing those down. And even though, because they're all one color right now, it's kind of hard to see, that's still creating some popped up detail. And I could even do like multiples of them where they're stacked all together, and you kind of get those details there of how that's stacking up and coming together with whatever details and whatnot that you want on there. So you guys go ahead, once you have your door shape cut out, go ahead and start gluing down and kind of designing how you want your door to be, how you want these different details and designs and different things to kind of stick down on your door. It's not going to be exactly perfect. You may try some things, decide you don't like them, however that's going to go, but think about kind of what you want your door to look like and what the best details for that's going to be. We are not going to necessarily finish this week. We are going to have some more time to work on this next week, so don't worry if you don't paint it or add your colors or other details to it just yet. We're going to have some more time to do our finishing details for it next week. So the main thing today is try and get all of your pieces that need to be glued down so that next week when we get back to working on this, that glue is nice and dry and we can go ahead and do our finishing steps, because it's hard to do any of that when this glue is still wet. So you guys go ahead, start cutting up, designing, twirling, creating your materials, and you guys just always send me a message if you have a question.